Patients rally behind doctor charged with money laundering and trafficking. 66-year-old horse carriage driver dies in Rabat traffic accident. And Malta and MIA join call for end to all EU COVID-19 travel restrictions. All this and more on Lovin Daily. Good evening and welcome to another edition of Lovin Daily. I'm Diacono, joined by Johnathan, Cilia, and make sure to stick around till the end of this episode because we're going to be interviewing Labour MP and candidate Jean Claude Micallef. But before we go there, John, what do you have to say about the latest developments concerning the arrest of Dr. Andrew Ajus?
A big major development on a story that Lovin Malta has been following closely over the last few weeks. The arrest of a Maltese doctor over what is believed to be a package of non-psychoactive cannabis hemp, and the subsequent charges in the face of this arrest, including everything from aggravated possession to money laundering, has sent shockwaves throughout the medical community in Malta. So the story concerns Dr. Andrew Ajus, who runs the pain clinic in Paola. This is a wellness clinic that is known for using alternative methods of healing, and they subscribe medical cannabis in Malta to patients ever since Malta legalized medical cannabis back in 2018. His clinic was recently raided. He was arrested and he's now been charged in court. You can find a detailed breakdown of the court report that Lovin Malta published last night if you want to see the details and kind of what the prosecution said and what the defense lawyers said. However, this morning, Malta's community, medical community, as well as cannabis community, have been shocked to find that kind of the breadth of charges in his wake. Like I said, money laundering he's being charged with money laundering, and that's no small joke. That's a major charge, especially for a Maltese doctor, a family doctor who's been working in Malta for about 15 years. Relief, a prominent pro-cannabis organization, called the arrest and subsequent charges as appalling. Other people took to Facebook, social media, Instagram to talk about the good he's done for patients, themselves and other families and their friends. Individual patients as well, were raising questions about, is this going to affect my medicine supply now? One of the things that came out of the court case is that the assets of the pain clinic will be temporarily frozen, which raises questions about employees being paid in time and whether the clinic will be able to run at all. Lovin Malta revealed some exclusive information today about kind of what led to the arrest, and this all stems over a package of cannabis that came from Greece that had 0.2% THC, THC being the psychoactive compound in cannabis. 0.2% is very negligible amounts. It's not going to get you high at all. And in fact, this is a medicinal kind of product. It has 9% CBD, which is the more medicinal element of cannabis. Now, obviously, this is very shocking because Malta legalized medical cannabis in 2018. And Malta expanded its regulations on cannabis at the tail end of last year. So a lot of people are now wondering what's going to happen. All eyes are now turning to the courts, as well as Reforms Minister Owen Bonnici, to see what comes next in the face of Dr. Andrew Ajus's charges.
Yeah, this just comes only a few months after Malta was heralded around the world as a world leader in cannabis legalization, which it was, but it's a real shame to see these sort of scenes happening as though the police haven't really caught up to the new realities and or trying to interpret the law in ways that will punish people and ultimately inject a huge dose of fear into the community. Moving on, some sad news. A 66-year-old man has lost his life in a tragic traffic accident that took place in Triqad Dingley Rabat earlier today. Investigations show that the man was riding or perhaps driving a horse sulky, and he was involved in a traffic accident, a crash with a Skoda Yeti driven by a 49-year-old woman. It's unknown whether the man was the driver or the passenger. There were two men on board, one age 64, one age 66. The 66-year-old was unfortunately declared dead on impact when the medics came on the scene. The other man is receiving treatment, and the horses are also receiving treatment at a vet.
You know, Lovin Malta definitely sends its condolences to the family during this challenging time. Moving on to the next story. If you were not aware, Malta, technically, as well as the world, is still in a pandemic, but Air Malta, as well as the Malta International Airport, are calling for an end to all EU COVID-19 travel restrictions. Now, this comes as Malta has some of the most restrictive restrictions still in place. You know, we have mandatory mask wearing, testing requirements, as well as need to present proof of vaccination or complete a passenger locator form. If you've traveled recently, I'm sure you're very well aware of it. However, in a joint letter, they have called on authorities to remove all these restrictions. They said, quote, "The negligible health benefits are therefore outweighed by the significant social and economic damage caused by the negative impact on air travel." And they also listed a number of requests that they believe should be implemented to kind of get the travel industry back on its feet. It's very interesting to see that, you know, this is happening all around Europe, and now also Malta's very own airport and national airline is involved as well.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with them. I think there's absolutely no need for any travel restrictions at the moment, at this point in time. If you look around the parties are happening with zero restrictions. Even the health minister himself is flouting them in public. It's quite clear that the time has come, and I would even go beyond Europe and say that it should be global. And because at some point it's going to start being seen as an economic cost, like the airline said, rather than a health benefit, because I can't really see the health benefit.
Do let us know in the comments below whether you think it's time for Malta's travel, infrastructure to remove these restrictions.
Moving on, PM candidate Mark Anthony Samot recounted a rather unexpected phone call he received from the team of Reforms Minister Owen Bonnici. So both him and his wife received a phone call from the minister's staff saying, "Do you want anything?" Now, Now this is it's a common electioneering tactic in Malta. It means it could be open to interpretation, right? So it could basically be at the lowest point, it's the minister checking up to see that everything's fine your end. But it could also be an invitation to a favor. So they ask you, "Do you need anything?" And they say, "Yes, I want something that perhaps you're not entitled to get." And Mark Anthony Samot tried this out. He said, "You know what I want? I want a washing machine." And he told Lovin Malta that, interestingly, the person on the other end of the line didn't say yes, but didn't say no either. I know. I don't know. I mean, I've never received one of these calls myself. I don't know if you have.
I've never. I would love to get a call, during election season from someone in government asking me what I need. I do have a few things I do need. So if you have any canvassers out there who are doing favors like this, do call me. But no, on a serious note, the topic of treating in Malta, which, if you're not aware of, is candidates in election season giving items or favors or money or something of sort in return for their vote, a person's vote. It's a serious issue. It's a crime in Malta. We've been covering it closely. Just last week we had, or early this week actually, I think we had Labour's Rosiane Cotillard giving out some mugs for Women's Day. I think there's a big discussion there. Is it treating? Is it
Rhea Bella giving out little VR sets?
Yes, there was actual
children.
Actual VR sets. So treating is a very much real thing there. But yes, any canvassers out there, you want to give out some washing machines, give me a call. My number's at the bottom of every article. And moving on to the final story today, a bit of a sweet story to end the first half of today's episode with. ADPD candidate Anthony Buttigieg has explained how he's donating his election campaign funds to Ukraine, to Ukrainian refugees. So this is actually quite a sweet gesture. Obviously, he's a third-party candidate, and they do things a little bit different than the main parties, it seems. And he said, quote, "I wanted to do something tangible." And the vast majority of refugees from Ukraine are women and children. Buttigieg is a doctor, he's a family doctor as well, so this is something that probably is close to his heart. He explained that he had donated €500 of his own election campaign funds to SOS Malta, which is working to help Ukrainian refugees, specifically refugees arriving in Romania. And he hopes that this kind of gesture will inspire other politicians to do the same during this election season.
I wonder it does. I hope it does. Great to see these kind of initiatives playing out. It's not the only one. Malta has really, I think, stepped up its game in terms of the donations and vocal support to the people of Ukraine. In fact, the leader of the opposition also called for the election campaign to be suspended for a day tomorrow, so that there can be a national peace march in solidarity with the people of Ukraine. There's been no update on that regard, but I don't think that will be a bad idea in these circumstances.
No, it is beautiful seeing how Malta has come out in solidarity with the Ukrainian people. I do hope that in future, when there's other wars, maybe in different regions such as the Middle East, North Africa, Africa in general, we show that kind of solidarity as well, because they need it just as much. And
that brings us to the end of today's episode. But stay tuned, because we're going to cut to and we're going to be interviewing Labour MP and electoral candidate Jean Claude Micallef. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Lovin Daily. With me now is Jean Claude Micallef, Labour candidate on the 3rd and 5th districts. Jean Claude, thank you very much for being with me here today.
Piacere tiegħi dejjem.
So, for those who may not know you, who are you and what issues do you plan to fight for if you get re-elected to Parliament?
Qabel ma jiena persuna fix-xandir u allura wiċċ nazzjonali jiena tifel tas-Sawt. Fil-fatt trabbejt ħalaxa imwieled Marsaxlok, noqgħod iż-Żejtun u naħseb l-iktar lokalità li ddedikajt dan iż-żmien kemm ili fil-Parlament kienet għal Marsa Scala, kif konxju li kulħadd huwa aware minnha din. L-għan tiegħi huwa illi fejn hemm l-inġustizzja jien ħa nitkellem. U allura it-twemmin tiegħi jibqa' dak illi nkun fuq quddiem għall-iktar persuni vulnerabbli. Iżda aktar minn kollox nixtieq nara soċjetà Maltija illi titbiegħat mill-medjokrità u nimxu lejn eċċellenza. U nemmen illi l-isport għandu jkun il-pilastru ewlieni li nistgħu nimxu għal soċjetà u ġenerazzjonijiet illi telgħin illi jkunu aktar kompetittivi, ġenerazzjonijiet illi huma aktar konxi tal-ambjent tagħhom u tagħhom infushom u li wieħed jippremja wkoll is-sagrifiċċju li jekk inti tkun dixxiplinat ħa tasal iktar qudiem u allura wara dawk is-sagrifiċċji tistenna li l-kwalità tkun tal-ogħla livell.
Interesting. So, third and fifth districts. What are the challenges that each district are facing as districts? Are they very similar?
Le minkejja aħna daqstant simili ta' xulxin u viċin xulxin hemm differenzi partikolari. Ġifieri jekk titkellem fuq temi komuni, żgur li l-ikbar challenge jibqa' dak tal-ispazji miftuħa. U allura bħala Partit Laburista qegħdin indirizzaw dan il-fattur. Kontent ħafna li PQs li ressaqt fejn ivarjaw minn breakwater għas-sajjieda li għandi 34 sena li nismagħhom jgħidu li xi darba jinbena, dit darba ġi budgetit ukoll u allura ħankunu qegħdin nagħmluh għal konċett innovattiv ħafna li huwa l-Park tal-Inwadar fejn ħankun qegħdin nibnu buskett ġdid, literalment, pulmun ġdid fil-nofsinhar ta' pajjiżna, l-aktar żona li sfortunatament il-żona li ġejjin minnha jiena li hija popolata. U allura meta wieħed jitkellem dwar l-iżvilupp, it's about time li nħarsu lejn żvilupp illi huwa eco.
U mhux se jsir l-iżvilupp tal-Università tal-AUN.
Niftit kredit dik fuqha, ġifieri ngħidilek bit-bissima għaliex kulħadd jaf illi jiena ħrixtonqi kontra dak il-proġett. Qabel xejn għaliex ħrixtonqi favur dejjem il-Marsa Scala Water Polo. U allura nħares il-qoddim illi wieħed ikun qed jikkumpenshom għal dan iż-żmien moħħli. Iżda aktar minn hekk mhux biss il-proġett tal-AUM, iżda anka dak li kien ħajsir ġo Marsa Scala, fil-bajja ta' Marsa Scala, l-Marina, illi kulħadd jaf kemm ħriġt onqi għal dak illi nemmen, nibqa' nagħmel hekk dejjem. Stajt nagħmel hekk ukoll għaliex sibt Prim Ministru illi minflok għatali rasi barra, poġġejna flimkien, iddiskutejna, tkellimna. Fem eżatt dak illi in-nies qegħdin iwasslu, fem eżatt l-aġenda tiegħi illi litteralment inkun hemmhekk b'suċċess għan-nies illi nirrappreżenta u bl-aktar mod umli u bl-aktar mod għaqli ħadd deċiżjoni li ħa fl-interess tan-nies ta' Marsa Scala.
So I wasn't intending to ask this, but it literally just happened. Like a few minutes ago, the Planning Authority approved this massive development in Sannat, in Gozo, it's not in your district to be fair, but it's in Gozo, by Joseph Bordelli. They approved it in open spaces. So when we hear about news like this, huge projects going up on open spaces, and then we hear the Labour Party and even the PN like saying we're going to be investing in open spaces and putting all this money in the environment, do you blame people who don't take these promises seriously?
Lejja nkunu ċari. Il-politiku għandu bżonn illi mhux biss jisma' iktar imma jiddeċiedi. Xi ħaġa li Roberta Bela rrid intuħ il-krittu tagħha u allura ħaqqu kull fiduċja li dak li jgħid ma jkunx qalu biex qalu, imma jkun qalu għaliex ikun evalwa dak li sema' u mbagħad jiddeċiedi. Fejn jidħol il-deċiżjonijiet ambjentali, it is about time illi ma nibqgħux naħdmu b'local plans illi saru fi żminijiet tal-Partit Nazzjonalista, naħseb illi huwa uġieħ kbir. Mhux għax nazzjonalisti u laburisti, ġifieri ma nħares lejn il-politika bl-imkatar jew bil-kuluri, imma it is about time illi ikun hemm riġenerazzjoni u rethinking process ta' dak kollu illi għandu x'jaqsam ma' kostruzzjoni. Bla dubju ta' xejn, aħna il-Partit Laburista qed jara li jkompli jkun gvern pro-market. U tagħmel differenza minn pro-business għal pro-market.
X'inhi differenza?
Pro-business mela allura wieħed qed jara l-interessi tan-negozjant iktar minn affarijiet oħra. Pro-market hija l-istent ċara tal-Prim Ministru Roberta Bela u ta' nies bħali li nappoġġjaw dik il-politika huwa li inti tisma' s-suq, tevalwa x'hemm bżonn mingħand l-stakeholders kollha, ir-residenti, l-NGOs differenti, laqdiet illi għandhom interessi kulturali u anka soċjali, flimkien max-xogħol biex inti tmexxi l-ekonomija. Issa, il-mument illi wieħed ikun jagħti jaqsam l-ekonomija b'mod soċjali għalih, ambjentali għalih, u toħloq segregation ta' dan kollu, mela allura jkollok ċertu anomaliji illi llum nisimgħu storja mod u għada nisimgħu storja mod ieħor. U allura hemm bżonn riforma holistika f'dan ir-rigward u ċertament li d-direzzjoni li qed inħarsu lejha mhijiex biss li noħolqu aktar jobs. L-ewwel pass illi minn ekonomija staġnata għand ekonomija li hija suċċess, dak wasalna għalih. The next step hija ċara u tonda illi nħarsu mhux biss li naqgħu l-flus fil-but, imma illi konna wkoll kwalità ta' ħajja aħjar.
But the economy is something it's not something that's static, it's constantly growing or decreasing. Do you fear or is there some kind of concern that it will go downwards like this?
Il-kelma fear hija game changer tal-ekonomija. Dan il-gvern laburista, il-biża mhux tal-li naqqas, tal-li tezza u kredibilità. U dawk huma wkoll game changers fl-ekonomija, ġifieri l-element ta' feel good factor. L-element li negozjant jaf li moħħu mistrieħ li jkollu lill-Partit Laburista illi anka waqt l-eqel ta' pandemija fejn pajjiżi oħrajn krollaw, aħna bħala gvern maqud konna ta' spalla għal negozji, dik tagħti kredibilità biex persuna tinvesti iktar. Riżultat ta' dan għandek rekord ta' konvenji li saru mill-Maltin u l-Awċin. U allura dik l-istess fiduċja turi illi il-poplu qiegħed jifhem eżatt id-direzzjoni li qed nagħtu bħala gvern, imma aktar minn kollox il-gvern qiegħed jifhem ukoll l-istidijiet tal-poplu. U flimkien irridu nimxu l-qudiem, irridu nimxu ġifieri l-għajta ta' Malta flimkien mhijiex just a slogan, imma huma l-stakeholders kollha li flimkien nagħmlu l-politika u il-Malta suċċess.
What do you think of the debate at the university? How did
Xtaqt li kontem jien. Staqt li kontem.
How did the Prime Minister perform?
Il-Prim Ministru fil-dan l-ewwel dibattitu, il-Prim Ministru wera biċċar il-ħiliet tiegħu, kelli l-ebda dubju għaliex kulħadd jaf kemm huwa debater tajjeb u kemm huwa avukat tajjeb.
Kif nafu qatt ma kellu
Le,
bħala Prim Ministru.
Mela, bħala Prim Ministru qatt ma kien hemm dibattitu mal-kap tal-Oppożizzjoni, mhux ma kienx hemm mal-kap tal-Oppożizzjoni, ma kienx hemm mal dan il-kap tal-Oppożizzjoni, għax kap tal-Oppożizzjoni kif nafu inbidlu ħafna dan l-aħħar snin. Però l-kwalitajiet ta' Roberta Bela kulħadd jafhom il-qorti kemm huwa debater tajjeb. Il-bieraħ wera prova ta' dan. Però wera wkoll illi l-iktar persuna li kien ilu jgħid kemm qed inħares il-qudiem li niddibattu il-Prim Ministru qed jibża minni, qed nirreferi għal Bernard Grek, ma tantx ħareġ ta' ieħor. L-istudenti u rew ukoll il-fil tagħhom. U naħseb ma jixtieqx jerġa' imur għal dibattitu Roberta.
One of the topics that was discussed was abortion. The Prime Minister said it's not on the Labour Party's agenda, so this Bernard the same thing. But
Ġifieri Bernard Beck saying the same thing.
No, he said
Roberta Bella ħastent ċara ma naf li Bernard Beck jgħat follow ta' Roberta Bella.
no, they both said it's not on the party's agenda, right? But there wasn't the usual, anti-abortion rhetoric. In fact, he said it's not on our agenda, but discussion is happening, and we can't. We need to understand women who carry out abortions. Do you think? And then also had ADPD saying we're in favor of legalizing to cheer from the audience. Do you think it's going to be an issue in 5 years' time, the 2027 election, and the way we're going?
Ma naħsibx li suġġett bħall-abort għandu jkun deċiż kemm wieħed jgħajjat jew kemm wieħed ma jitkellimx, ġifieri għandek sitwazzjoni, anzi ta' sitwazzjoni li hija fis-silenzju u d-deċiżjoni li jsiru wkoll fis-silenzju. U allura jiena bħala politiku a favur totali illi jkun hemm diskussjoni dwar dan. Meta għandha ssir għandha nkunu aħna l-politiċi illi niddeċiedu nieħdu a step backwards u nħallu lin-nies li jitkellmu u jgħidu tagħhom mingħajr ma ssir ballun politiku. Għaliex niftakru li għandek żewġ individwi, żewġ statuses illi huma l-aktar vulnerabbli fis-soċjetà, ġifieri it-tarbija fil-ġuf u l-persuna l-om illi qed iġġor dik it-tarbija. U allura suġġett bħal dan mhux biss huwa sensittiv u jixraqlu l-attenzjoni kollha, però huwa suġġett illi ma tista' qatt tieħu deċiżjoni vjova minnu fih, imma naraw li Malta tkun preparata biżżejjed biex kwalunkwe diskussjoni li għandha issir bl-aktar mod apert u mingħajr xkil.
A few years ago, you had asked whether the police are investigating people who carry out abortions. Do you still think the police should have any role at all with regards to abortions?
Irrelevanti x'naħseb li għad sentejn ilu u sfortunatament Lovin Malta kienet misquoted mi f'ċerti affarijiet imma mbagħad saru corrections u napprezza għaliex hekk jitlob il-wieħed jagħmel. Il-liġi tagħna għadu reat. Ġifieri il-liġi jekk xi ħadd jikkommetti abort huwa reat. Meta jiena staqsejt x'inhu tagħmel il-pulizija fid-dawl ta' sitwazzjonijiet qed tagħla għajn waħda jew qiegħda tinvestiga sitwazzjonijiet. U għalfejn huwa dan? Il-pulizija xogħolha mhux li tipprosegwixxi biss, il-pulizija xogħolha hija li tissalvagwardja s-soċjetà. U allura persuna illi tkun qiegħda tiġi abbużata, persuna illi tkun qiegħda tiġi maltrattata, f'każijiet illi l-pulizija jkollha il-riżorsi biżżejjed biex tista' tinvestiga, mela allura minn hemmhekk wieħed jista' jaqbad ukoll ċertu sitwazzjonijiet u kif jagħmlu f'diversi istanzi oħrajn, il-pulizija isalvaw il-ħajjiet. Jiena persona li favur il-ħajja, favur kwalità ta' ħajja tajba u bla dubju ta' xejn l-istant tiegħi tibqa' dik personali illi nara li l-kull wieħed waħda minna illi nfittxu soluzzjoni għal ħajja aħjar. Il-bot mill-istigmas, il-bot mill-xaħat illi iħoss li għandu dritt item ħajjet ħaddieħor sempliċement billi impoġġew il-problema taħt it-tapit, jew inkella nieħdu deċiżjoni daqs li kieku l-abort huwa soluzzjoni.
You made a good point. You said that it's a crime right now. It's a fact. It is a crime. In fact, the whole
Il-liġi hekk għadha.
Le mhux hekk eżatt. The whole point is that's why people are
saying ukoll sfortunatament, ġifieri ma naqbilx li l-liġi hija kif inhi.
How should it be?
Il-liġi għandha tisma' sew ir-realtajiet kif in il-liġi ma tantx qiegħda tgħin biex persuna tkun tista' titkellem, ġifieri il-mument li inti kollok sitwazzjoni toħloq qed jinħolqu sitwazzjonijiet, ultaqajt ma' ħafna sitwazzjonijiet personali fejn persuna jekk ħadd titkellem tgħidlek jiena x'se nagħmel, ħanpoġġi lili nnifsi fil-ħabs x'se nagħmel fiha. Ġifieri jiena nippreferi li nersqu aktar lejn soċjetà illi tkun tolleranti iktar u illi s-soċjetà titbiegħet il-bot mill-konċett ta' punishment imma tkun iktar solidali u riformista. U naħseb illi it's about time għalhekk illi meta jiġi l-mument wieħed ikun qiegħed jiddiskuti. Naħseb illi l-mument
So the law will have to change then. That's the solution.
I hope so.
Okay, so you mentioned...
Unkun jgħat nejn fuq qoddim biex wieħed mhux jaġġel għal proċess imma jaħseb l-aħjar mod possibbli.
So you mentioned earlier on that one of your priorities is sport, and you mentioned the element of sacrifice, something that many people, it's a bit hard to understand that.
Aħna Mediterranju, niddejqu nagħmlu sagrifiċi, ġifieri kulħadd irid kollox malajru jekk jista' jkun il-figura tagħna u l-well-being tagħna ma tantx intuh priorità.
And in fact,
sfortunatamente.
Yeah, and in fact, if you had made a proposal, quite an interesting one, which said that it should be mandatory for every child to do sports and attend a sports program, like it is mandatory for them to attend school at the moment. Now, the National Party came up with a proposal that reminded me of it, which is that stipend should increase, but only for students who carry out voluntary work. Do you agree with this proposal?
Jienew pjaċir il-Partit Nazzjonalista u kwalunkwe kandidat ieħor jimxi fuq proposti li nkun ressat. Iżda minix it-tip ta' persuna li nħu pjaċir b'xi ħaġa li l-aqwa li ssir. Ġifieri jew issir tajba jew ma nagħmluhiex. Jiena t-tip ta' persuna illi jekk ħanagħmel xi ħaġa jew ħanagħmilha sew. Ma nagħmilx half-baked. Il-proposta tal-Partit Nazzjonalista f'dan rigward hija ħarira half-baked għalkemm l-intenzjoni tidher li hija tajba. U allura jiena rrid nara soċjetà illi l-isport ma tħarriġ biss liħ bħala passatemp. U allura nagħtik xi ħaġa talli qed tagħmel xi ħaġa, però li jkun hemm shift in mentality. Ġifieri jiena rrid nutilizza l-isport biex ikun hemm shift in mentality ta' kif inħarsu lejn il-ħajja. Mela li inti minn età żgħira tibda titħarreġ u allura tibda tara d-differenza wkoll kif tiekol, kif iżżomm lilek innifsek, literalment tara f'xinu tajjeb għalik u le. Ħajkonna ġenerazzjonijiet iktar il-qoddim.
And this will be part of school or separate to school?
Li għandha ssir riforma sħiħa anke fis-settur edukattiv. Ġifieri jiena meta ħriġt dik il-proposta kien hemm ammont ta' reactions illi komplew ituni raġun għalfejn verament għandna bżonn nersqu lejha għaliex kien hemm qed jgħidlek issa twassalhom li inti tfal. Ġifieri literalment wieħed jaħseb illi bħal l-isport hija xi ħaġa żejda. Jew ma daw ma xiex ħajlaħqu. Meta il-verità hija dik illi aħna poplu li ffukat aktar li nġibu records akademiċi, iżda mbagħad, ġifieri iktar faċli li f'Malta ssib professuri. Milli ssib professuri li kapaċi jgħixu ħajja tajba. U dik ir-realtà hija ġejja mill-mentalità. Issa, kwalunkwe pajjiż illi huwa żviluppat jurik illi investiment fl-isport wassal għal soċjetà illi tkun aktar kolta, allura fejn jidħol l-arti, il-kultura wieħed ħajkun qed japprezza aktar u dik tgħix ħajja aħjar ukoll. Binqas problemi, ġifieri binqas problemi għaliex jiena nieħu pjaċir illi anke fl-element ta' saħħa nkunu aħna li nerfgħu ir-responsabilità u ma nibdewx nifirħu, ġifieri Alla jiġi żmien, illi ma nibdewx nifirħu kemm ħankun qed inraħsu il-mediċini u kemm jirnexxiena jieħdu mediċini b'xejn, imma nibdew inħarsu li dawk il-flus illi nifrankaw mill-mediċini għax qed ngħixu ħajja aktar sana, inkunu nistgħu nutilizzawhom f'performances aħjar. Sa dak huwa fejn jidħol lifestyle sport. Kieku minflok jagħti hawnhekk illum jiena kieku jgħid Strasbourg fejn jgħid nitkellem fuq il-Common Sports Policy illi ressaqt fil-Konferenza għall-Futur tal-Ewropa, tinsix bħala Unjoni Ewropea m'għandniex lanqas a Common Sports Policy. Għanna Common Agricultural Policy, għanna Common Fisheries Policy, għanna ħafna policies oħrajn, pero sports u well-being m'għandniex. U hemmhekk fil-Parlament Ewropew ġibt il-qudiem l-idea u qed nieħu pjaċir li ħafna pajjiżi qegħdin juru support leha illi naqsmu l-isport bejn lifestyle dak li għadna tkellimna fuq u anke elite. Mela elite ikollok focus sħiħa fejn fil-waqt illi jkollok pajjiżi illi fejn jidħol l-elite sport ħan ikkompetu ma' xulxin minn ħajkseb l-aktar deb, minn ħajkun l-iktar fast, etc. Fil-kwistjoni ta' lifestyle isiru sharing ta' best practices. Nsemmi per eżempju fejn tidħol l-edukazzjoni l-Erasmus project illi hemm ħafna. U hemm diversi temi oħrajn.
And lifestyle should be for everyone then.
Yes, eżatt. Ġifieri meta nitkellmu fuq l-isport m'iniex qed nitkellem biss fuq iż-żgħażagħ, ġifieri biex inkunu ċari, qed nitkellem anke fuq anzjani attivi. Il-inti anka fid-djar tal-anzjani jkollok eżerċizzju fiżiku biex iva tejjeb u tawal il-ħajja aħjar. Aħna sfortunatament nirrataw l-sport sal-etajiet ta' 16-17. Sakemm wieħed imur għall-eżamijiet u mbagħad ikollu l-problemi u t-tensions kollha. U hemmhekk fejn għandna dropouts kbar fil-qasam sportiv, until then aħna nipparteċipaw ma' pajjiżi ikbar minna bl-aħjar mod possibbli u ħadd ma jista' jgerger bir-riżultati x'jiġri wara. Wara jiġri li għandek pajjiż li mhux qed jissapportja biżejjed l-isport. Meta nitkellem sport tajb li ngħidha mhux qed nitkellem futbol.
Futbol biss.
Sewa jew water polo biss. Li nsellmilhom għas-suċċessi kbar li hemm, però għandek sport ieħor, ġifieri il-motor sport huwa wieħed minnhom u mbagħad għandek ammont ta' individual sport ieħor illi f'Malta għandna ħafna nies b'talent kbir illi sfortunatament huma din hemmhekk imma rridu nkunu aħna li nibnu industrija. And I look forward to the day fil-viċin illi jirnexxinna anke noħolqu industrija sportiva.
Yeah. Finally, Jean Claude, if people want to speak to you, to reach out to you, to ask you something, how can they get in touch with you?
Mux how they actually do. Ġifieri kif forsi ndonajt il-mobile tiegħi sfortunatament huwa iktar imqareb minni u allura jiċċaqlaq iktar minni. Ħafna huma dawk li jistgħu jagħmlu kuntatt miegħi anke fuq il-Facebook page tiegħi fejn hemmhekk inwieġeb regolari lil dak li jkun. Il-mobile tiegħi fid-distrett huwa naqra popolari wkoll, ġifieri però wieħed ħossu komdu li jagħmel kuntatt u min-naħa tiegħi nerġa' inkun viċin. Joġobni ħafna iktar il-kuntatt uman, ġifieri I look forward li niltaqa' ma' aktar nies. Illum għamilt biżżejjed door to door għallum, ġifieri m'għandix ċans biżżejjed għaliex imbagħad irid imur għall-konferenza ġenerali. Però iktar ma nkun ġon nies iktar inkun kontent.
Jean Claude Micallef, thank you very much.
Pjaċir tiegħi.
Thank you for staying with us on today's episode of Lovin Daily. Make sure to follow lovinmoto.com and have an evening full of lovin'.